Well, it is Tuesday, February 18th, and this video is being recorded at 7:42. Temperatures, big story this morning. It's cold, but the bigger story is going to be the chance for winter weather later on. So this is what this video is mainly going to be about. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter than usual and just give you a clear, concise view of what we can expect, even though this system is not going to be clear and the forecast is going to be pretty difficult. But I feel like we have a decent handle on what's going to happen. This morning we're waking up to below freezing temperatures, a lot of frost out there. But by the afternoon we're actually going to rebound fairly nicely into the upper 40s to lower 50s, which is pretty close to average. Actually running about 5 degrees below normal for this time of the year. So temperatures are going to bounce back, and it's going to be a fairly comfortable day with somewhat light winds. But here's a look at our next system. Again, this is the big thing on everyone's mind because it will impact your morning commute tomorrow across much of the southeast, mid-south, and parts of the Ohio Valley. We're already seeing snow breaking out across southern Missouri, parts of Illinois and Indiana, and even northern Kentucky, all the way back into Arkansas and Oklahoma. So we're going to watch this closely because this low pressure is going to dive, kind of redevelop and strengthen along the Gulf Coast, and then move up into parts of the Carolinas and then re-strengthen again, giving parts of Virginia Beach and northeast North Carolina a big snow. But for us, it's going to be a little bit tricky. So as this low pressure moves along the Gulf Coast, we're going to have some convection firing up. And if there's too much storm activity along the Gulf Coast, that's going to suck some of the moisture out of the system as it moves across our area. But if the storm convection isn't as intense, we may have a little more moisture to work with. So I'm going to watch the radar like a hawk today. But I do expect everyone to see at some point some winter weather tomorrow. Here's a look at our current advisories and warnings as of 7:44. Winter storm warnings from the Outer Banks, really, and parts of Maryland and Virginia, all the way back into Kansas, Oklahoma. So where you have the pink shades, that's where the confidence is highest that there's going to be significant impact from this winter storm. For us, we have winter weather advisories, except for the snow hole, and that includes Hamilton, Bradley, Polk, parts of Monroe, McMinn, Cherokee, Clay, Ray, and Meigs counties. But let me go and tell you, even though we don't have advisories yet, which I think we will, there's still going to be impacts in these areas. So more than likely, there's going to be an advisory issue. I know it looks kind of funny because, yeah, you have North Georgia with impacts. You have Northeast Alabama with advisories. So there's no advisories here in Southeast Tennessee or extreme Western North Carolina just yet, but I expect those to increase. And then you can see the advisories all the way back to the Charlotte and Asheville areas. Now, as we take a look at what's going to happen, so the snow is going to break out likely between 2 and 3, transitioning to more of a wintry mix and maybe even a cold rain during the mid-morning and early afternoon, depending on where you're at. That transition happens earlier in North Georgia, later the further north you go into Tennessee. We're going to have light accumulations, primarily north and west of the city. I think that's going to be our best window, and it's going to be more on grassy surfaces. Could have some roadways in the higher elevations getting slick, but I think it's mainly going to be grassy surfaces because temperatures are going to be somewhat marginal, close to freezing. Here's a look at your onset of snow or winter weather, 1 to 2 o'clock in Middle Tennessee. That could be a little bit later, a little bit earlier, depending on the progression of the system. 2 to 3 for Chattanooga, Dunlap, Athens, Dalton, Fort Payne, down to Calhoun. And then after 3 or 4 o'clock for the Blue Ridge Mountains from Murphy down to Ellijay. So that's just a general window of when this may start. So if you want to see some snowflakes falling out of the sky, you might want to set your alarm pretty early tomorrow morning. Could continue all the way through the daylight hours. Let's track it all out. Again, this is our in-house model, a little more aggressive this morning. By about 3, 4 o'clock, that transition is already happening, or it may start as rain initially, and then that rain falls and it cools the column of air down a little bit, and it looks like we should be generally all snow. This is the latest data coming in this morning. That blue, all snow. The pink, down into North Georgia, that's more of a wintry mix of rain and snow and sleet, and a cold rain the further to the south. So between about 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we're generally going to be all snow north and west of Chattanooga. By the time the sun comes up, this quickly starts to transition to more of a rain, snow, sloppy mix for much of southeast Tennessee and parts of North Georgia. And then by the time this all moves out, it should generally be rain during the afternoon, and we could get another burst of snow after the sun goes down as temperatures start to drop, and then flurries all night long. So this is our latest guidance from our in-house model, and I'm putting this as the boom scenario because it tends to favor higher amounts, anywhere from 1 to 2 inches north and west of Chattanooga, with localized higher amounts along the Cumberland Plateau, with pretty much no accumulations across North Georgia. Again, that warm nose is going to butt its head into parts of southeast Tennessee and northwest Georgia tomorrow, cutting down on any accumulation potential. Bust amounts, this is the lower end, and there's a lot of other models I can show you that kind of indicates a middle ground of up to an inch in most areas, but this would pretty much put no accumulation across North Georgia, northeast Alabama, with some light accumulation across the northern tier of the area, McMinn, Ray, Meigs, Bledsoe counties, and maybe up to an inch across portions of the Cumberland Plateau. But for me, I'm still pretty confident with what I put out yesterday. I think we'll go middle ground here, up to an inch in places like Monteagle, Dunlap, Athens, Benton, Maryville, up through Knoxville. 1 to 3 inches in northern Sequatchie, Grundy, parts of Bledsoe, maybe even the northern tip of Ray and Meigs counties where you have colder air. So more snow potential the further north and west you go. North Georgia, it's going to be a sloppy mix. So some of you may get a dusting, some of you may get nothing. There could be a few areas, especially across Dade and Walker counties, that pick up a 1/2 inch to an inch on some of the ridge tops, and then mainly rain the further south you go towards the Atlanta metro area. So there's going to be a sharp cutoff. The further north you go tomorrow from Chattanooga, the better chance you have of seeing up to an inch of slushy snow. Again, this isn't going to be like what we had back in January. Temperature's not going to be as cold. You got to keep in mind, when that snow started January 10th, that morning, temperatures plummeted into the mid-20s. That's not going to be the case. Going to be a lot of moisture content in this. It looks like temperature is going to be marginal, right around freezing, maybe even a little bit above, and the moisture not going to be quite as heavy. Again, we had a heavy thumping of snow last time. Moisture not going to be quite as heavy this go round, but nonetheless, I think these are a pretty good handle on what could expect. Yeah, there could be higher amounts if we get more moisture and the air is a little bit colder. Could be lower amounts if some of that warm air starts to loft in a little bit quicker. But nonetheless, I expect some impacts, not necessarily major impacts unless you live in a mountainous community where temperatures are colder, because I think a lot of the accumulation here in the valley, at least, is primarily going to be confined to some of the grassier surfaces. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But the potential for up to an inch of snow still exists all the way into northwest Georgia. I would say anywhere from a 30 to 50% chance in places like Chattanooga, Cleveland. And that red shade, that's where it's pretty much a lock to get an inch of snow. So North Arkansas, parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, and this is the European. GFS pretty much the same. Highest confidence of accumulating snow to our north and west and along the Tennessee-North Carolina line. So we are going to have impact here. It's not going to be like January, but there's still going to be some slick spots, especially, again, further north you go where the cold air is going to be hanging out. Next 7 days after this all moves out, highs drop down into the 30s, maybe struggling to get above freezing on Thursday, overnight lows in the teens, but looking ahead towards the end of the month and the 1st of March, well, our temperature trend map is showing blank, but it's trending warmer. I'll go ahead and I'll let you know that. It is trending warmer. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. And wow, we're only 8 minutes in. Did pretty good today. Storm alert weather mode tomorrow, obviously for a messy morning commute. By the afternoon, temperatures do rise above freezing, so anything that may be sticking to the roads will just be a sloppy, wet mess by the afternoon. Additional flurries possible after sunset into early Thursday morning. But then we could have some patches of black ice Thursday morning. I'm watching that pretty closely. Highs only 32. Overnight lows in the teens. Again Thursday night into Friday morning. And then we slowly but surely start to rebound into next week back to 61. So between Thursday and Monday, that's a 30-degree temperature difference in our highs here in Chattanooga. But again, wind and precipitation starts after about 2 or 3 o'clock. I think the window between 3 and 8 is when we would have our highest impacts. The best chance of that being more winter weather, favoring snow, maybe some sleet across North Georgia. And then after about 8, 9 o'clock, areas north of, well, south of the Tennessee state line and even parts of southeast Tennessee start to transition to more of a rain-snow, rain mix, and then eventually mainly going to be rain for the entire area by lunchtime with additional flurries possible. So again, light accumulation still going to be possible up to an inch or so from Chattanooga northbound, 1/2 of an inch across North Georgia with higher amounts in some of the higher elevations and along the Cumberland Plateau. So that's what we're looking at. Things can still change. Sometimes these systems have surprises. Sometimes they don't pan out, but I think this is a pretty good idea of what's going to happen here. So we'll keep you updated throughout the day. Chief Meteorologist David Carnes will be in later. Enjoy your day and stay tuned for more updates.